I waited because something sacred shouldn't be rushed. Dear future wife, there were moments when I questioned the waiting, moments when it felt inconvenient, moments when it felt lonely, moments when it felt like I was standing still while everyone else was moving forward. But I didn't wait because I was unsure. I waited because something sacred shouldn't be rushed. I could have chosen quickly. I could have said yes to almost. I could have convinced myself that good enough was enough. But every time I stood at the edge of settling, something inside me whispered, "Not yet." And I listened, not because I was searching for perfection, but because I was protecting peace. Peace doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it doesn't panic. It simply settles when something is right. And until I felt that settling, I refused to move. I waited because I didn't want to build a life with someone I had to constantly convince myself about. I waited because I didn't want to negotiate my standards just to meet a timeline. I waited because marriage is not an experiment. It's a covenant. And covenants just deserve clarity. There were seasons when loneliness tempted me, when silence felt heavier than conviction, when companionship looked easier than discernment. But loneliness is temporary. Misalignment is enduring. And I chose temporary discomfort over permanent compromise. Future wife, I didn't wait because I liked options. I waited because I respected impact. The woman I marry will shape the rhythm of my days, the tone of my home, the emotional atmosphere of my life, the environment my children grow up in. That kind of influence demands intention. I couldn't treat that lightly. There were connections that felt promising, conversations that flowed, moments that felt hopeful. But something inside me remained unsettled, not anxious, just aware. Aware that something deeper hadn't aligned. And instead of silencing that awareness, I honored it. I waited because I didn't want to look back years from now wondering if I ignored my intuition. Intuition is not fear, it's clarity trying to speak. I waited because I wanted to meet you as a whole man, not as a man escaping loneliness, not as a man chasing validation, not as a man tired of waiting, but as a man grounded in himself. I wanted to build identity before partnership, to know who I am before intertwining who I am with you. Waiting taught me discipline. It taught me patience. It taught me that attraction alone is not enough, that chemistry alone is not stability, that comfort alone is not alignment. I waited because I wanted depth. Depth in conversation, depth in values, depth in emotional awareness, depth in faith, depth in vision. I didn't want surface level connection. I wanted substance. I waited because I didn't want to perform compatibility. I wanted to experience it naturally, without over-explaining, without constant adjusting, without self-reduction. I didn't want to shrink to fit. I wanted to expand together. There were times when I thought, maybe I'm asking for too much. But I wasn't asking for too much. I was asking for alignment. Alignment is rare, but rare is worth the wait. Future wife, I waited because I wanted you feeling chosen, not convenient. I wanted you knowing that when I commit, it's not because you were available, it's because you were right. Right in values, right in spirit, right in emotional rhythm, right in the way peace surrounds us. I didn't want to settle and slowly grow distant. I didn't want to start strong and finish strained. I wanted to start steady and build stronger. Waiting refined me. It exposed my impatience. It exposed my ego. It exposed my fear of being alone too long, and it taught me to confront those fears instead of running from them. I learned to enjoy my own company, to build discipline, to grow emotionally, to strengthen spiritually, to clarify my vision. So when you arrive, you won't meet a man searching for completion. You'll meet a man ready for partnership. I waited because I believe in peace over pressure. Pressure rushes decisions. Peace confirms them. I wanted confirmation, not urgency, not adrenaline, not fear of missing out. Confirmation. I wanted to look at you one day and feel calm conviction, not restless negotiation. I wanted to choose you fully, without hesitation, without internal debate, without maybe. Waiting gave me that standard. It taught me what misalignment feels like. It taught me what tension feels like. It taught me what shrinking feels like. So that when I meet you, I'll recognize expansion. I'll recognize ease. I'll recognize depth. I'll recognize peace. Future wife, I didn't wait because I was afraid of commitment. I waited because I respect commitment. Because once I choose you, I am not choosing lightly. I am choosing daily. choosing to communicate, choosing to communicate, choosing to protect, choosing to grow, choosing to listen, choosing to soften, choosing to lead with humility. That kind of choice requires readiness. Waiting built readiness. It built patience in conflict. It built emotional awareness. It built the ability to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. It built clarity about what truly matters. And what truly matters isn't perfection. It's alignment. It's respect. It's shared vision. It's emotional safety. It's partnership. I waited because I didn't want to enter marriage needing to fix loneliness. I wanted to enter marriage wanting to build legacy. There's a difference. Loneliness seeks relief. Legacy seeks foundation. I'm building foundation for us. Waiting wasn't passive. It was preparation. Preparation of character. Preparation of patience. Preparation of peace. And one day when we sit together reflecting on how our paths crossed, I want to tell you confidently, I didn't rush into this. I didn't compromise to get here. I didn't silence my intuition. I waited for you. Not because you were perfect, but because something about us feels settled, feels steady, feels aligned. I waited because I want forever with confidence, not curiosity. I waited because I value depth over speed. I waited because peace mattered more than pressure. I waited because when it's right, you don't have to convince yourself. You just know. And when I meet you, I believe I will know. Not with fireworks, not with chaos, but with calm. The kind of calm that says, this is why you waited. And that calm will be worth every season of patience. Waiting wasn't emptiness. It was alignment for me. Dear future wife, when I say I waited, I don't mean I paused my life. I don't mean I sat still hoping you would appear. Waiting, for me, wasn't passive. It was intentional restraint. There's a difference between being alone and being unfinished. For a while, I thought being single meant something was missing. That maybe I was behind. That maybe I had miscalculated something in life. That maybe love was supposed to happen faster if I had done everything right. But the longer I waited, the more I realized something powerful. I wasn't missing anything. I was becoming something. Waiting wasn't emptiness. It was alignment forming. There were nights when I felt the weight of solitude, not dramatic loneliness, just the quiet awareness that I hadn't met you yet. And in those moments, it would have been easy to fill the space with something temporary. Temporary connection, temporary comfort, temporary distraction. But I didn't want temporary. I wanted timeless. And timeless requires patience. Future wife, I didn't wait because I'm overly cautious. I waited because I understand permanence. The person I choose will influence my thinking, my habits, my future children, my emotional health, my spiritual rhythm, my environment. That's not small, that's foundational. And foundations deserve deliberation. There were relationships that could have worked well enough. We could have built something, we could have shared routines, we could have blended lives, but I felt something subtle every time. A quiet misalignment. Not loud enough to justify drama, but clear enough to prevent peace. And peace is not optional. I didn't want to silence that subtle voice for the sake of progress. I didn't want to say yes because everyone else was moving forward. Comparison is loud. It makes waiting feel like failure, but comparison doesn't understand timing. I had to learn to silence comparison so I could hear conviction. Conviction doesn't rush. Conviction doesn't panic. Conviction waits until alignment feels settled. I didn't want to marry out of momentum. I wanted to marry out of clarity. There's a difference between falling into something and stepping into something. I want to step into it, not fall into convenience. Waiting taught me self-awareness. It exposed my insecurities. It exposed my impatience. It exposed my desire for companionship more than I thought I had. And instead of numbing those desires, I confronted them. I learned to enjoy my own rhythm, to strengthen my discipline, to refine my standards, to understand what kind of emotional partnership I need. I don't want surface, I want depth. I don't want chaos mistaken for passion. I want stability strengthened by attraction. I don't want to negotiate my values. I want to share them, and values take time to clarify. Future wife, I waited because I wanted to be ready for your depth. If you are introspective, I want to meet you there. If you are emotionally expressive, I want to respond with steadiness. If you are ambitious, I want to support without insecurity. If you are strong, I want to respect without competition. That kind of readiness isn't automatic, it's built. And waiting built it. There were times when I almost broke, not dramatically, but quietly. Moments when I thought, maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe peace is unrealistic. Maybe I just need to choose someone decent and build from there. But every time I imagined building from misalignment, something inside me tightened. Marriage isn't about hoping alignment grows later. It's about recognizing it early. Growth enhances alignment. It doesn't create it from nothing. I waited because I want our foundation to feel natural. I want to talk to you and feel understood, not interpreted. I want to disagree with you and feel respected, not dismissed. I want to sit in silence and feel calm, not tension. I want to make decisions together and feel like we're rowing in the same direction, not negotiating direction constantly. I waited because I believe love should feel like partnership, not persuasion. I don't want to persuade myself into loving you. I want to recognize it. Recognition feels different. It feels steady, not overwhelming, not chaotic, steady. There's something sacred about steady love. The world glorifies intensity, but intensity burns fast if not grounded. I want grounded love, the kind that feels peaceful in the morning, safe at night, consistent in conflict, warm in routine. Waiting also taught me humility. It reminded me that I am not entitled to love on my timeline. It taught me surrender. It taught me to trust that what is meant for me won't require compromise of my core. And compromise of core values leads to resentment. Resentment leads to distance. Distance leads to disconnection. I don't want to build a future that begins with quiet resentment. I want to begin with mutual confidence. Future wife, I didn't wait because I was scared to commit. I waited because I take commitment seriously. Once I choose you, I am choosing fully, not halfway, not cautiously, fully. That kind of commitment cannot be rushed. It must be entered with certainty, not certainty that we will never struggle, but certainty that we are aligned. I don't want to wonder if there was someone more compatible. I don't want to shew whether I ignored signs. I want to feel settled in my decision, and I want you feeling the same. I hope you're waiting with the same intention, not from fear, not from arrogance, from discernment, from self-respect, from belief that alignment exists. Waiting refined my desires. It removed superficial priorities. It clarified what truly matters. Character over charisma, consistency over chemistry alone, depth over distraction, peace over pressure. And because I waited, I am not desperate. I am intentional. I am not rushing. I am recognizing. When I meet you, I want to feel expansion, not contraction. I want to feel like being with you makes me more myself, not less. I want you feeling the same. That's why I waited. Not for perfection, for peace. Not for fantasy, for foundation. Not for urgency, for alignment. Waiting wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Preparation to love you properly. Preparation to choose you confidently. Preparation to build something steady. One day, when we sit together reflecting on how we got here, I want to look at you and know I didn't rush into this. I didn't settle for almost. I didn't ignore my intuition. I waited because something sacred deserves patience. And you are sacred. That is why I waited. I waited because I refused to build forever on doubt. Dear future wife, there's another layer to the waiting that I haven't fully explained yet. It wasn't just about finding the right person. It was about becoming the right partner. That sounds simple, but it wasn't. Because becoming requires honesty. And honesty requires slowing down. There were moments in my life when I could have said yes out of momentum, when attraction was present, when compatibility looked strong on the surface, when everyone around me would have approved. But I kept asking myself one quiet question. Is this aligned or is this convenient? Convenience is dangerous. It makes you feel secure quickly. It removes uncertainty. It gives you something tangible. But convenience doesn't always equal compatibility. And compatibility isn't about shared hobbies or surface level agreement. It's about emotional rhythm, about how two people handle pressure, about how two people disagree, about how two people recover, about whether peace remains even when tension appears. I waited because I refused to build forever on doubt. Not loud doubt, not dramatic doubt. The quiet kind, the kind that whispers, this might work, but does it feel right? That whisper matters, because that whisper, ignored repeatedly, turns into regret. I didn't want regret. Future wife, I didn't wait because I was indecisive. I waited because I am decisive about important things. Marriage isn't a season. It's a structure. It shapes everything around it, your mindset, your priorities, your habits, your children, your emotional tone. I didn't want to build something permanent from temporary clarity. I wanted deep clarity, the kind that feels calm, the kind that doesn't need daily convincing, the kind that settles. There were seasons when I felt ready to love deeply, but not aligned with who was in front of me. And walking away from almost is harder than walking away from wrong. Wrong is obvious. Almost feels promising. But promising is not peaceful. And peace became my standard. I noticed something during those waiting seasons. When I was with someone misaligned, I felt like I had to monitor myself, monitor my tone, monitor my words, monitor how much of myself was safe to reveal. I don't want to monitor myself in marriage. I want to be natural, not careless. Natural. I want to laugh without calculating, speak without filtering my personality, disagree without fearing disconnection, express affection without overthinking response. Waiting taught me what tension feels like. So I could recognize ease, not boredom, not indifference, ease. The kind where conversation doesn't feel forced, where presence doesn't feel heavy, where silence doesn't feel awkward. I waited because I believe love should feel like partnership, not performance. Performance is exhausting. Partnership is sustaining. There's another truth. Waiting exposed parts of me that still needed refinement. Impatience, ego, fear of being left behind. Moments of insecurity, moments where comparison tried to rush me. Comparison is subtle pressure. It tells you everyone else is ahead. It convinces you that you're behind schedule. But love doesn't follow schedule. It follows alignment. And alignment doesn't rush. Future wife, I waited because I didn't want to meet you from a place of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of missing out, fear of judgment. I wanted to meet you from strength, from stability, from identity, from knowing who I am independent of relationship status. Because if I don't know who I am alone, I will try to find myself inside you. And that creates imbalance. I don't want imbalance, I want mutual strength, mutual awareness, mutual clarity. Waiting gave me that. It taught me to enjoy solitude, to build discipline, to refine communication, to understand my emotional triggers, to identify patterns I don't want to repeat, because I don't want to carry unresolved baggage into our marriage. I want to carry awareness. There were relationships in my past that taught me what I don't want, not because they were toxic, but because they revealed misalignment. I learned that attraction alone fades, chemistry alone fluctuates, but shared values anchor. Shared emotional maturity stabilizes. Shared vision sustains. And I refuse to compromise those. I waited because I don't want to fight about core things later. I want to refine details, not debate identity. I don't want to convince you to care about what matters to me. I want you already aligned. And I want to be aligned with you too. I don't want to tolerate differences that erode peace. I want to celebrate differences that sharpen growth. There's a difference. Some differences create tension. Others create balance. Discernment tells you which is which, and discernment requires patience. Waiting strengthened my discernment. It slowed my impulses. It forced me to ask deeper questions. It taught me that loneliness is not a reason to commit. Commitment should never be an escape. It should be an intentional step forward. Future wife, when I choose you, it won't be because you fill the gap. It will be because you fit in values, fit in emotional depth, fit in long-term vision, fit in peace. And fit doesn't mean identical. It means compatible in core. I don't want to look at you one day wondering if I ignored something important. I want to look at you knowing I listened to my intuition fully, knowing I didn't silence red flags, knowing I didn't rationalize tension, knowing I didn't shrink myself to fit something temporary. Waiting wasn't passive, it was protective. Protective of you. Protective of you. Protective of me. Protective of the life we will build. Because once we build it, I want it standing on certainty, not curiosity. I want to wake up next to you years from now and still feel the same peace I felt in the beginning. Not because everything is perfect, but because the foundation was solid. I waited because foundation matters more than fireworks. Fireworks are loud. Foundation is lasting. And I am building lasting. For you. Even before I know you. I waited because I believe love should heal steady, not frantic, not pressured, steady. The kind that makes you breathe deeper. The kind that makes you breathe deeper. The kind that doesn't require self-negotiation. When I finally meet you, I want to recognize you by that steadiness, by that calm conviction, by that internal clarity that says, this is not almost, this is aligned. That is why I waited. Not because I was hesitant, but because I was intentional. Not because I was unsure, but because I was protecting certainty. I waited because forever deserves confidence. And when I finally stand beside you, I want to know without hesitation this was worth every season of patience. I waited because forever deserves certainty. Dear future wife, there's something deeper I need to say about the waiting. It wasn't just about alignment. It wasn't just about standards. It wasn't just about avoiding regret. It was about protecting the future version of us. Because every decision I make before you affects the life we will one day share, and I refuse to bring confusion into something meant to feel clear. There were moments when I felt ready to commit to someone simply because I was ready for commitment. But readiness for commitment does not mean readiness for that person. That distinction matters. I didn't want to marry out of readiness alone. I wanted to marry out of recognition. Recognition feels different. It feels calm. It feels grounded. It feels like two lives naturally moving in the same direction instead of being forced to merge. I waited because I didn't want to merge with someone out of fear of being alone. I wanted to unite with someone out of confidence. There's a difference between escaping loneliness and embracing partnership. Loneliness can push you into decisions. Confidence allows you to choose wisely. I chose confidence. Future wife, I didn't wait because I lacked options. I waited because I value impact. The woman I marry will shape how I think, how I feel, how I grow, how I parent, how I rest, how I handle conflict, how I build. That influence is sacred. Sacred things deserve patience. There were times when I imagined saying yes to someone who was almost right, almost aligned in values, almost matching in emotional depth, almost fitting in life direction. But almost is subtle compromise. And subtle compromise becomes silent resentment over time. I didn't want to carry silent resentment into marriage. I wanted to carry conviction. Conviction doesn't eliminate challenges, but it removes doubt at the core. And doubt at the core erodes stability. I waited because I wanted to look at you one day and feel zero internal debate, not zero questions about the future, but zero doubt about the foundation. There were seasons when waiting felt inconvenient, when it felt like I was the only one not moving forward, when people asked questions, when timelines felt loud, when comparison tried to rush me. But comparison doesn't understand calling. And I believe marriage is a calling, not a checklist, not a milestone, not a social achievement, a calling. And calling requires discernment. Discernment requires quiet. Waiting gave me quiet. Quiet to reflect. Quiet to evaluate patterns, quiet to grow emotionally, quiet to refine what I truly need in partnership, quiet to strengthen my identity without attachment. Future wife, I didn't want to need you. I wanted to choose you. Neediness creates imbalance, choice creates strength. I want us choosing each other daily, not clinging out of fear, not tolerating out of convenience. Choosing. There's something powerful about knowing you walked away from things that weren't fully aligned. Because when you finally step into what is aligned, you don't question it. You don't second guess it. You don't negotiate your intuition. You recognize it. Recognition feels like exhaling, like your nervous system relaxing, like your mind settling. I waited because I didn't want to be anxious in love. I didn't want to constantly analyze. I didn't want to manage misalignment. I wanted peace. Peace isn't passive. Peace is powerful. Peace is the quiet confirmation that something fits without force. And I refuse to move forward without it. There were relationships that were comfortable, but comfort is not compatibility. Comfort can exist even when core values diverge. Compatibility is deeper. It's shared vision, shared emotional intelligence, shared commitment to growth, shared humility, shared ability to repair conflict. I waited because I don't want to learn conflict style after vows. I want to recognize compatibility before them. I don't want to fix core misalignment later. I want to refine strengths together. Waiting taught me what I can compromise on and what I cannot. I can compromise on preferences. I cannot compromise on character. I can compromise on timing. I cannot compromise on peace. I can compromise on minor differences. I cannot compromise on core direction. Future wife I want to build is someone who values growth as much as comfort. Someone who understands that love isn't static. Someone who doesn't avoid hard conversations. Someone who softens quickly. Someone who protects connection. I don't want to carry emotional tension silently. I want open communication. And communication is easier when alignment already exists. Waiting allowed me to see clearly what misalignment feels like. Subtle tension, unspoken hesitations, slight emotional contraction. I don't want contraction. I want expansion. Expansion doesn't mean chaos. It means feeling more yourself, not less. I waited because I don't want to feel smaller in marriage. I want to feel strengthened. And I want you feeling the same. I don't want you adjusting yourself constantly to maintain peace. I want you being yourself confidently, because peace already exists. There were times when impatience whispered, just choose someone decent. But decent is not destiny. And I believe destiny requires discernment. I don't mean fairy tale destiny. I mean alignment of character and calling. When I finally meet you, I don't want to feel relief. I want to feel recognition. Relief implies I escaped loneliness. Recognition implies I found alignment. I waited because I want recognition. Recognition feels steady, not dramatic, not frantic, steady. It feels like knowing, like clarity without force, like conviction without noise, and I refuse to trade that for speed. Forever deserves certainty. Not urgency, not compromise, not fear-driven decisions. Certainty, not certainty or perfection. Certainty of alignment. I waited because I believe love should feel peaceful at its core, even when life is loud, even when stress appears, even when conflict happens. Peace at the core sustains everything else. I don't want to build on sand. I want to build on rock. Rock isn't glamorous, but it is reliable. And reliability matters more than intensity. I waited because I want our love to be stable, not spectacular and fragile. Stable love lasts. Spectacular, without stability, collapses. Future wife, when I choose you, it will not be because time pressured me. It will not be because loneliness pushed me. It will not be because convenience tempted me. It will be because peace confirmed you. Because alignment settled in me. Because my spirit recognized yours. Because our direction matched. Because our values resonated. Because our presence felt steady. That is why I waited. Not because I was unsure, but because I was careful. Not because I was afraid, but because I was intentional. Not because I doubted love, but because I respect it. Forever deserves certainty, and I am building certainty for you, even before I know your name. I waited because I didn't want to gamble with forever. Dear future wife, there's one more truth about the waiting that I haven't fully unpacked. It wasn't only about finding peace. It wasn't only about alignment. It wasn't only about discernment. It was about refusing to gamble with something permanent. I didn't want to treat marriage like a hopeful experiment. I didn't want to say, this might work, and call that faith. Faith is not blind optimism. Faith is confident commitment built on clarity. And clarity takes time. There were moments when everything looked right on paper. Shared interests, shared ambitions, shared attraction, even shared timing. But paper doesn't reveal depth. Paper doesn't reveal conflict patterns. Paper doesn't reveal emotional resilience. Paper doesn't reveal how someone responds when they're tired, stressed, or challenged. I waited because I didn't want to discover misalignment after vows. I wanted to recognize alignment before them. There's something sacred about building slowly. About watching how someone handles disappointment. About observing how they speak about others when those people aren't present. About noticing how they manage pressure. About seeing how they repair after misunderstanding. Those things take time, and I refuse to rush them. Future wife. I didn't wait because I was hesitant to love. I waited because I am serious about love. Love is not just affection. It's endurance. It's sacrifice. It's daily presence. It's choosing someone when convenience fades. It's staying when seasons shift. And staying requires compatibility deeper than attraction. I've seen relationships built on spark alone. They start bright, they burn fast. But when stress enters, the spark doesn't sustain. I wanted something steadier, something that doesn't need constant excitement to survive, something that feels grounded even when life gets heavy. I waited because I don't want us arguing about direction. I want us refining direction together. I don't want us negotiating core values. I want us aligning naturally on them. I don't want to convince you to care about what matters to me. And I don't want you convincing me to care about what anchors you. I want mutual conviction. Waiting clarified my non-negotiables. Integrity. Emotional maturity. Humility. Kindness under pressure. Depth in conversation. Shared long-term vision. Peace in presence. I didn't want to compromise those for the sake of progress. Progress without alignment leads to pressure. Pressure leads to resentment. Resentment leads to distance. Distance erodes love. I don't want erosion. I want endurance. There were seasons when waiting felt unfair, when I questioned why others seemed to find their person quickly, when I wondered if I was too cautious. But caution with permanent decisions is wisdom. You don't rush architecture for a building meant to last generations. You measure carefully. You reinforce foundations. You plan structurally. Marriage deserves that kind of intentionality. Future wife, I waited because I didn't want to bring unfinished healing into our life together. I've made mistakes, handled conflict imperfectly, withdrawn when I should have communicated, overthought when I should have communicated, overthought when I should have trusted, and I needed time to recognize those patterns, to confront them, to refine them. I didn't want to enter marriage expecting you to compensate for my blind spots. I wanted to enter aware of them. Awareness creates responsibility. Responsibility strengthens partnership. Waiting also strengthened my patience, and patience is essential in marriage. Because there will be seasons that test us. Seasons where clarity feels foggy. Seasons where stress tries to dominate. Seasons where growth feels uncomfortable. I didn't want to enter those seasons fragile. I wanted to enter them grounded. Grounded in self-awareness. Grounded in emotional regulation. Grounded in humility. Grounded in humility. Grounded in the ability to listen without defensiveness. Those qualities aren't automatic. They're cultivated. And waiting cultivate them. I don't want to marry you because it's time. I want to marry you because it's right. Time precious. Rightness confirms. There were moments when I almost convinced myself that rightness was unrealistic, that maybe I was searching for an ideal. But I wasn't searching for perfection. I was searching for peace. Peace isn't fantasy. It's alignment. Alignment doesn't eliminate conflict. It stabilizes it. I waited because I want our disagreements to feel safe, not threatening. I want tension to feel resolvable, not destabilizing. I want both of us to feel secure even when we're frustrated. That kind of security isn't built overnight. It's recognized gradually. And I gave myself permission to recognize it slowly. Future wife, I didn't want to build with someone I had to constantly reassure myself about. I want to build with someone I feel steady about. Steady love may not look dramatic, but it lasts. It doesn't fluctuate wildly with emotion. It remains consistent. I want consistency, not constant intensity. Intensity is exciting. Consistency is sustaining. Waiting helped me understand that. It stripped away illusions. It removed urgency. It clarified priorities. It taught me to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Loneliness used to feel urgent. Now it feels instructive. It taught me resilience. It taught me independence. It taught me contentment. So when I meet you, I won't cling. I'll choose. There's power in choosing from fullness, not from emptiness. I don't want to need you to feel complete. I want to walk beside you as someone already whole, that we can build something greater than either of us alone. I waited because I want to look at you one day and feel absolute conviction. Not butterflies alone, not excitement alone. Conviction, the quiet, settled confidence that says, this is right. Conviction that doesn't fade when circumstances shift. Conviction that anchors commitment. Conviction that silences doubt. That kind of conviction cannot be rushed. It must be recognized. I waited because forever deserves conviction. Not optimism alone. Not hope alone. Conviction. And when I finally meet you, I believe I will feel it. Not loud. Not chaotic. Not overwhelming. Calm. Certain. Peaceful. I will know because my mind won't debate. My heart won't hesitate. My spirit won't question. It will settle. And that settling will be the reward of every season I chose. Patience. That is why I waited. Because I didn't want to gamble with forever. I wanted to build it with certainty, with clarity, with alignment, with peace. And when I choose you, it will not be rushed. It will be resolved. And that resolution will make every season of waiting worth it. I waited because forever deserves peace at its core. Dear future wife, if this is the last thing I ever write about the waiting, I want it to hold the weight of everything I've learned. I didn't wait because I was unsure of love. I waited because I respected too much to rush it. There is a difference between wanting companionship and being ready for covenant. Companionship fills silence. Covenant shapes legacy. And I've always known that when I say I do, it will not be casual. It will not be reactive. It will not be pressured. It will be deliberate. I waited because I didn't want our beginning to be built on internal hesitation. I didn't want to stand beside you with quiet questions in the back of my mind. I didn't want to carry subtle doubt into something meant to be secure. Doubt doesn't disappear after vows. It lingers. It whispers in conflict. It resurfaces in stress. And I refuse to plant that seed in our future. There were moments in my life where everything looked right on the surface. The timing aligned. The affection existed. The possibility was real. And still, something inside me remained unsettled. Not anxious. Not fearful. Just not fully at rest. And I learned to trust that lack of rest. Because peace at the core matters more than excitement at the surface. Excitement fades. Peace anchors. Future wife, I waited because I wanted to recognize you with calm conviction, not emotional chaos. I didn't want adrenaline. I didn't want urgency. I didn't want pressure disguised as passion. I wanted steadiness. The kind of steadiness that makes you breathe deeper around someone. The kind that doesn't require constant reassurance. The kind that doesn't force you to shrink or adjust your identity to maintain harmony. I waited because I didn't want to negotiate who I am in order to be loved. And I don't want you negotiating who you are either. I want us choosing each other fully, not tolerating each other carefully. There is something sacred about knowing you didn't settle, knowing you didn't rush, knowing you didn't silence your intuition. That knowledge becomes security, and security strengthens love. I waited because I didn't want to wake up 5 years into marriage, wondering if I ignored subtle signs. I didn't want to build something beautiful externally that felt strained internally. I didn't want to carry quiet resentment because I compromised something foundational. Marriage deserves more than this will do. It deserves this feels right. And rightness is not loud. It's settled. There were seasons when waiting felt heavy, when the silence of being alone at night echoed louder than conviction, when watching others move forward made me question my pace. But comparison is a terrible compass. It points toward urgency, not alignment. And I refuse to let urgency choose for me. I learned to sit in solitude without panic. I learned to enjoy growth without distraction. I learned that being alone is not being incomplete. Completeness does not arrive with a ring. It is cultivated internally. And I wanted to meet you complete, not searching for you to fill what I had not confronted in myself. I didn't want to bring insecurity into our home and call it love. I wanted to bring stability. I didn't want to bring unresolved patterns into our conversations. I wanted to bring awareness. Waiting gave me time to examine myself, honestly, to see where I withdraw, to see where I overthink, to see where pride creeps in, to see where fear influences decisions, and to work on those things before they became our burden. Because I don't want our marriage to be a repair project from the start. I want you to be a partnership of two people who have done the internal work. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Future wife, I waited because I want to protect the emotional climate of our home. Homes are shaped by tone. Tone is shaped by communication. Communication is shaped by character. And character is shaped in solitude. Waiting shaped by character. It taught me patience. It taught me discipline. It taught me how to regulate emotion instead of reacting impulsively. It taught me how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping into distraction. These are not glamorous lessons, but they are essential ones. I didn't want to enter marriage needing constant validation. I wanted to enter secure. I didn't want to marry because I was tired of waiting. I wanted to marry because I recognized alignment. Recognition feels different from relief. Relief says, finally, I'm not alone. Recognition says, this is where I'm meant to build. I want recognition. There were opportunities I could have pursued further, people who were kind, people who were attractive, people who were compatible in certain areas. But compatibility in pieces is not compatibility in core. Core compatibility is rare. It is shared values under pressure. Shared humility in conflict. Shared commitment to growth. Shared emotional intelligence. Shared long-term vision. I refuse to compromise on core. Because core determines direction, and direction determines destiny. I waited because I want to look at you one day and feel zero internal resistance, not because you are flawless, but because alignment is clear. I want to stand beside you and feel at home, not cautious, not uncertain, at home. Home is not just a place. It is a feeling of rest. I want to rest with you, not rest from loneliness, rest in partnership. I want to know that when life becomes chaotic, our foundation remains steady. That when stress enters, we communicate instead of collapse. That when disagreement happens, respect remains intact. That when seasons shift, we adapt together instead of drifting apart. That kind of stability doesn't come from rushing. It comes from choosing carefully. Wedding also protected you. Even though I didn't know you yet, it protected you from being chosen prematurely, protected you from being compared unfairly, protected you from inheriting confusion. When I meet you, I want you knowing that I didn't entertain half commitment. I didn't juggle uncertainty. I didn't keep one foot in and one foot out. I waited so that when I choose you, it is wholehearted. I want you feeling secure. Secure that I didn't settle for you. Secure that I didn't rush into you. Secure that I arrived at you with clarity. There is something powerful about knowing you are someone's intentional choice, not their fallback, not their convenience, their conviction. I want you to feel like conviction. Because that is how I want to feel about you. Waiting wasn't wasted time. It was preparation. Preparation of patience. Preparation of discernment. Preparation of identity. Preparation of peace. Peace became my standard, not perfection. Peace. Peace that doesn't vanish in tension. Peace that doesn't depend on constant reassurance. Peace that remains even when life feels loud. When I meet you, I believe I will feel that peace. Not in fireworks, not in dramatic emotion. In quiet confidence, in calm certainty, in steady alignment. And that peace will confirm every season of waiting. Future wife, I waited because forever deserves peace at its core. Forever is too long to build on doubt. Too sacred to build on convenience. Too important to build on convenience. I waited because I want to build something that lasts beyond excitement. Something that grows deeper over time. Something that strengthens under strain. Something that feels like partnership every day. Not just romance on special occasions. I waited because I respect you, even before knowing you. Respect means not rushing into something that could harm you. Respect means not dragging unresolved issues into your life. Respect means preparing myself to love you well, and loving well requires intention. So if you ever wonder why it took time, if you ever question why we didn't meet sooner, if you ever reflect on the seasons before us, know this. I wasn't delaying love. I was protecting it. I wasn't avoiding commitment. I was preparing for it. I wasn't hesitant about you. I was honoring forever. And when I finally meet you, when our paths align and peace settles and conviction feels steady, I will look at you and know, this is why I waited. Not because it was easy, not because it was convenient, but because forever deserves certainty. And certainty requires patience. I waited because I wanted to choose you without hesitation. And when I do, it will be with full clarity, full confidence, full peace, and full commitment. That is why I waited.
I don't want imbalance. I want mutual strength, mutual awareness, mutual clarity. Waiting gave me that. It taught me to enjoy solitude, to build discipline, to refine communication, to understand my emotional triggers, to identify partners I don't want to repeat. Because I don't want to carry unsolved baggage into our marriage. I want to carry awareness. There were relations in my past that taught me what I don't want, not because they were toxic, but because they revealed a misalignment. I learned that attraction alone fades, chemistry alone fluctuates, but shared value anchors. Shared emotional maturity stabilizes. Shared vision sustains, and I refuse to compromise those. I waited because I don't want to fight about core things left. I want to refine details, not debate in identity. I don't want to convince you to care about what matters to me. I want to already align, and I want to be aligned with you too.